Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. What sparks a love of poetry? The highbrow puzzles of E. Cummings, or the imagism of Ezra Pound? The lyrical music of John Keats or Christina Rossetti? The logical jumps and intellectual gymnastics of the metaphysical poets? The gimmick that marks Ferlinghetti? The emotions that lurk in a Longfellow sonnet? The intriguing story songs that we just examined in September? None of these sparked my love of poetry. They deepened my love and enriched it, teased me by simultaneously engaging mind and heart. My love of poetry was sparked by my mother. She also gifted her daughters with a love of birds, of flowers, of nature itself. She would quote poems that she'd memorized over her years, poems that echoed with her love of nature, and those poems still echo for me. When I see these lines expressed in nature, poetry lives for me. Over the years, I've found more poems that live, some highbrow, some with a lowbrow snicker, some middlebrow, and disrespected by intellectuals as not clever enough. I say if the poem is to a person's taste, then who has a right to disrespect their choice? In this episode, we examine two fall-related poems by a poet that a poetry website called Middlebrow and Bourgeois. One poem is an example of an earlier work, bound by a strict meter, yet which offers a taste of her growing lyricism. The second poem shows her growing mastery of meter as she defeats the pounding cadence of the iambic pentameter necessary to the classical sonnet. For writers, examining the distinctive growth from an earlier work to a later work can be illuminating and heartening. As that writer improved with practice, so can we. We need only find a disciplined way to practice our craft. These two poems also offer a marketing lesson for all writers, especially poets and writers of short stories. Both poems belong to a calendar of poems, a poem a month, and a sonnet a month, a way to sell a series to editors, a guarantee of 12 sales rather than posting out 12 different works and hoping editors take 12 bites. Our poet is Helen Hunt Jackson, whose work is known for its vivid imagery and lyricism. She's better known now as an early champion of Native American rights in the mid to late 1800s, long before it was fashionable. Our first poem is one that my mother often quoted as autumn approached. The poem focuses on the first harbingers of autumn, those signs that we all eagerly look for. The first 4 stanzas of this 7-stanza poem offer these harbingers. Here's the first 4 stanzas of September. The goldenrod is yellow, the corn is turning brown. The trees and apple orchards with fruit are bending down. The gentian's bluest fringes are curling in the sun. In dusty pods the milkweed its hidden silk has spun. The sedges flaunt their harvest in every meadow nook, and asters by the brookside make asters in the brook. From dewy lanes at morning the grapes' sweet odors rise. At noon the roads all flutter with yellow butterflies. We have a simple ABCB rhyme scheme and a strong alternating meter, the first and third lines at 7 syllables, with a trochaic meter, and the second and fourth lines at a strong iambic trimeter. The first and third lines could be called a headless trochaic tetrameter, 4 beats per line, strong syllables, first with the first measured beat missing its strong syllable. Or it could be a 7-syllable iambic trimeter, the same kind of line later used by A.E. Housman in his odd number lines in his famous When I Was 1 and 20. But that's digging too deeply into the mechanics and destroying the pure enjoyment of the words, the kind of thing teachers are known for. I will note that the 7 and 6 are symbolic numbers. Subconscious touches any writer can easily add to their works, like Easter eggs for readers in the know. 7 is a perfect number. 6 is mystery, doubled mystery. And the changes of autumn are mysteries, with the trigger of the changes unknown and always shifting year to year. The goldenrod, the corn, the fruit-laden apple trees, these are our first vivid signs, easily seen by anyone driving through the countryside. The gentians and milkweed are more subtle signs. Only people looking for these flowers would see their changes. The third stanza is back to obvious signs. The sedges flaunt their harvest, while the bright asters have a mirror image in the brook. The fourth stanza contains time-based imagery, the heavy sweetness of grapes in the morning, and the noontime fluttering of yellow butterflies fluttering by. At this point, we've only seen signs of autumn. The last 3 stanzas are devoted to the poet's thoughts. Stanza 5 is the poet's valuation of the month. By all these lovely tokens, September days are here, with summer's best of weather and autumn's best of cheer. Stanza 6 begins hinting at the poet's personal value of autumn. But none of all this beauty which floods the earth and air is unto me the secret which makes September fair. A secret! The secret we all want to know. Eagerly we read stanza 7. 'Tis a thing which I remember, to name it thrills me yet. One day of 1 September I never can forget. Oh, here's a secret our poet is not going to share, merely give us intriguing hints. Half revealing a secret is a certain way to bring people back and back to the text, to look for clues. Now we have a better image for the poem's speaker to take remarkable note of each sign of autumn. She has a reason to celebrate an annual day, a reason greater than a birthday, unless it's the date of conception that leads to birth, as in Christina Rossetti's poem, A Birthday, an anniversary of an engagement or marriage, or yearned for a reunion after weeks or months or even years away. This September is a simple enjoyment, an easy poem to memorize, to recite when you see these common signs of autumn, my favorite time of year after the blazing heat of summer. Our next poem by Helen Hunt Jackson is evidence of her maturity as a poet, the sonnet October, from the Calendar of Sonnets. A Petrarchan sonnet, it's divided into an octet and a sestet in classic iambic pentameter. Not a heavy meter this time, but more conversational, as writing should be communicating with us, not with itself. A rhyme scheme of A, BBA, A, BBA, CDC, DDC is expected with the next little reversal of the rhyme in the last 2 lines. A minor little twist that rewards the observant audience, a reward as strong as the Easter eggs of symbolic colors and numbers. We have a more intellectual poem as well, announcing its propositional theme, then providing it through the rest of the poem, requiring us to remember that theme all through, rather than drift like an airy mote from image to image, as we did in September. Sonnets are marked with a volta, the turn in Italian. Usually in Shakespearean or English sonnets, the volta occurs at the concluding couplet. In Petrarchan or Italian sonnets like this one, the volta may occur at the turn from octet to sestet, yet not so with this sonnet. We begin with the volta in the statement of that propositional theme in the opening 3 lines, the first sentence. What does Hunt propose? October, like a carnival of colors, frees up nature and turns through all the seasons in a single day. The month of carnival of all the year, when nature lets the wild earth go its way and spend whole seasons on a single day. Then she wheels through the seasons, ending each with the claim that October does it better, more richly, more wonderfully. The springtime holds, she writes, her white and purple dear. These colors of spring are dear, valued, held as precious, and therefore are not to be flung profligately across the landscape. To emphasize this frugality of color, Jackson gives only 1 line to spring. We find these whites and purples hiding away in springtime, in sheltered nooks, a hint here, a touch there, peaks of growth after the deep cold of winter. October, though, flaunts them far and near, celebrating the colors, exuberant splashes across God's wild landscape. The alliterative F emphasizes October's exuberant display. As with spring, clutching colors close and strongly, so is summer. The summer charily her reds doth lay like jewels on her costliest array. The hot season, green predominant, barely shows gleams of red in nature, as if the color is an expensive jewel too precious to share with others, brought out for display only on special occasions. What does October do? Again, we have alliteration for emphasis. October, scornful, burns them on a bier. Why is October personified as scornful here? Not scornful of the color, but scornful of the stinginess of summer, saving the reds for special days, treating the color as a precious jewel, when it should be flung outward in celebration of its glory against the lushness of green growth. We've reached the sestet, and winter, also stingy, hoarding his pearls of frost in sign of kingdom, as if the world were not aware that winter dominates its time of the yearly carnival. The season gives us pearls, whiter than even winter expected, finer and purer than the greatest gem that an Egyptian empress wore. The ancient Egyptians valued pearls so much that they buried the best with their beloved family members. They used pearls to decorate jewelry and precious objects, and we have that famous story of Cleopatra, surely our empress in the poem, who dissolved an expensive pearl in wine and drank it down, reputed to be the most expensive dinner in all history. Mark Antony refused to follow her example. This allusion explains the metaphor of the last 3 lines. October, feasting 'neath her dome of blue, drinks at a single draught, slow filtered through sunshiny air, as in a tingling wine. Again, alliteration, doubled up this time, with the D's and then the S. We are to feast beneath the crystal blue sky of October, drinking a whole goblet of wine even more expensive than what was bottled, drinking without stopping until we are finished, the sun filtering the drink that quenches our thirst, as we tingle with the excitement of all the month offers. It's an intriguing poem, much more so than the easily memorized September. Jackson's word choice is exceptional here. Lavish October flaunts. Summer, with its constant growth, still acts charily, which makes October scornful. Winter, so dominant, hoards, miserly as Scrooge, who has abundance but cannot open his tight fist until his night of ghost. and the allusion to ancient Egypt and Cleopatra, her dinner with Mark Antony, the supposed greatest love story, yet one remains frugal while the other throws her whole heart into the event. For me, the most interesting word choice is that of carnival in the first line. Immediately I think of the fairs of autumn, fall festivals, with the garish colors and bright lights and loud music of the carnival. A fun time when we are not stingy with our time, money, or enjoyment. It's a sly reference by Jackson to remind us of those fall festivals without wasting a word on that. Instead, she focuses on the meaning of riotous excess and gives her evidence one season after another. October flings out all the colors of glory rather than hoarding them close. October gives, then, the most expensive feast of the year, shared in love. As a writer, do not forget the marketing genius of selling 12 short works at once by classifying them as a calendar, a trick our poet pulled on editors twice. Nor did she worry about changing the works' names. We have 2 poems of September, 2 of October, 2 of November, and so on, through the year. The only distinction she made was in the structure, the common 4-line stanza poem versus the sonnet. And while some scholars snobbishly classify the first poem as bourgeois, we must remember that Jackson wrote to please her audience, not some college professor interested in poems with obscure allusions or tricky little puzzles, or with a poet who flaunted a scandalous life. Jackson focused on what would have the widest appeal for her audience, much as Shakespeare did. The university men of Shakespeare's time frowned upon his plays and poetry and claimed other writers were more worthy. Yet it is Shakespeare we remember. We perform on stage time after time. We film. And it's Jackson's September with its signs heralding autumn that I will keep quoting. So there. Remember that when you want to write something obscure and entangled, who is your audience? You need not dumb down your writing for your audience. It's harder to write clearly and strongly than it is to write obscurely and preciously. Be like lavish October, flinging your colors far and wide in celebration of your ideas and your writing. When we do this, we will always write on. Every writer is after memorable writing, whatever will strengthen our words and ideas so they haunt our audience. We want our audience to return again and again to our writing, either to recapture that original impact or to puzzle out a question that wasn't answered. Capture our audience, and they stay with our writing to the end. Satisfy our audience, and they seek more of our writing. This is our goal. Win-win, us and them. Our series, Fall into Poetry, would seem to appeal only to poets, but that's a surface glance. We writers can learn from any writing style, poetry teaching fiction, dramas teaching nonfiction, any mix-up we can contemplate. Join the Right Focus all through autumn as we examine great poems that teach a multitude of lessons for all writers. Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Renee Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.